Rob Damiani, Don Broco, your new album, Nightmare Tripping, it's been out for almost a month now. So
Yeah,
it's
a
already,
month tomorrow.
I guess you have already some responses, some feedback from your fans. And my impression is that it's the heaviest, the hardest album you recorded. And I wonder, was it something you wanted to do from the start? Was it your goal to make the hardest album so far?
Yeah, that was, that was maybe the only goal we had. Um, yeah, we've always, been quite, broad within our palette when creating an album, and there's always quite a few different songs on a record, and throughout our career, we've released quite different albums. I wouldn't say really different, but they've all got their own identity. But one thing we've definitely struggled with as a band is by allowing the creativity to flow and allowing the parameters sort of to be taken down of what I guess some bands maybe constrict themselves to. The downside to that is a more kind of disparate sound where people don't always know how to describe you, and we don't even know how to describe ourselves a lot of the time. People ask, what do you sound like? And you do an interview where they're like, give us 3 words that describe your brand, and we're like, we find that too difficult. um, so for the first time in our career, this album, we wanted to make a heavy record. We wanted the way the songs, the way the lyrics were sort of coming out, and the ideas I had, everything felt a little bit darker anyway. So it made sense for the music to reflect that. And when we were trying to unify, um, the uh, I guess the genres and the palette of sonics outside drums, bass, and guitar, we still found it pretty hard to really focus on one thing. We did try that a couple of times, and we just get bored too quickly. So the only thing that we said, right, this whole album, this album, there's still space to let it breathe and space to have more reflective emotional songs there. But as an overall picture, the one thing we set ourselves to do is write a heavy album, but still make it feel like Don Broco. Still, try and keep the identity and the sonics and the I guess prioritizing melody as well. That's something that we've always done as a band. We always, usually build songs around hooks and choruses and refrains and things that make us feel like, oh, okay, that's in an old-fashioned sense. That's a hook right there. We're resonating with that. We can't get that out of our heads. If there was an idea like that, that always ends up forming like the blueprint of the song. So yeah, with all that combined, I think it meant the only difference really for the creative process, the main difference was just actually putting away songs, songs that we liked, songs that we felt had potential, but if they didn't fit that brief and they didn't feel heavy enough, then we'd like leave it to one side. We can come back to that one day if we write something, a softer record, or it can find its moment on another record. But that was the one thing we kind of set ourselves out to do this time.
It's interesting to see because it seems more and more bands are recording heavier albums and they are getting bigger and bigger. And in the old days, the way if you wanted to go mainstream, you had to like play a more friendly stuff. Even Metallica from Injustice for All to Black Album, they became more mainstream because their music
Mm.
changed. But these days, it seems, bands like Lorna Shore, Architects, and you are recording, heavier albums, and still you are getting bigger.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting study to see, um, the reasons behind that. I mean, a lot of it is to do with, just what you want to do as the creative, what you want to do as a band, where you want to take things. For us, it's very much we resonate so much from the live show, and we've always had riffs and heavy sections throughout our music. But as we're playing more and more shows, as you get busier as a band, you're on the road so much, you're playing so many shows that forms such a big part of your life. What is going to make us happy as a band? And it's playing those heavier moments and those, that physical reaction, that heavy riff, that can bring to a show. That when you see people, it's interesting. Like it's as basic as you're seeing people singing back a song as a band, and they might be singing as loud as they can, and they're singing along to every word, but you don't get the visual of, and sometimes I take my ears out and I hear it and it's really nice, but the visual, visceral reaction of people just like punching each other in a mosh pit, like that gets me excited. That gets me more excited. I love both, but I think, hopefully within this album, we're giving fans both, and then we're getting that reaction back from both of them, from both those elements. But also, as you said about radio, I think interestingly, there's no desire now as a rock band to pander to radio, to write a radio, because there's so little radio out there. Like, such little amount of rock music gets played on the radio. People are listening to the radio less, unfortunately, which is a shame because I love listening to the radio. I love not having to think about what I want to put on and just being surprised and discovered, and, radio forms, radio, as well as a bit of chit chat, it's almost like it's a place of curation, where someone really knows what they're talking about, and they've, more specialist shows. That's what I kind of enjoy listening to. But apart from those specialist shows, the mainstream radio is playing less and less rock music. So what's the point in a band trying to, get in with those mainstream rock stations? Like, just play what you want, do what you want, and your fan base will find you, I think.
And I think that younger generation are people like who are used to listen music over the internet, so they listen to a lot of different stuff. They listen to heavy metal, hip hop, pop, and a great example to me is the title track "Nightmare Tripping" from your new album, because it opens with a riff that sounds like System of a Down. Then you have this part that sounds like the Dillinger Escape Plan. Then you have these vocals that sound to me like Michael Jackson, and on top of that, you have Nickelback. So
Yeah.
all in the one thing, yeah.
I mean, and I think that's it's those examples are the exact examples that we felt while we were writing the song. And that, those examples, they're all bands and artists we love. Do you know what I mean? They're bands, I think my generation was maybe one of the first generations where we grew up with the internet. We grew up with music available at the touch of a button. And that allowed you to discover so much. It allowed, I grew up listening to, as a kid, Michael Jackson was all we played in my house. That was my musical education was purely Michael Jackson. That's all my parents played. But then obviously once you're old enough to start discovering, choosing what you want to listen to, I love System of a Down. I love Dillinger Escape. I actually saw them at the same time. I saw Dillinger Escape Plan supporting System of a Down at Brixton Academy in London. Love those bands, but also at the same time, love Nickelback, and you can be open to enjoying all these different, types of music, all these different types of bands. And for us, this song was how do we create a unique song that still references those artists that we love. And it was a struggle, it was that we had even more ideas for that song that didn't end up being in, but just balancing those songs, it was a jigsaw piece putting together. And a lot of times we were like, this is just too weird. Like, we need to simplify this song. But eventually, once it clicked, and it's, for us created something, super unique and exciting that we, were really, just so stoked for people to hear, especially with Nickelback jumping on and just, elevating the song to a whole nother level. So, yeah.
It's amazing, to have them. And how did you get them? Because they don't do a lot of guest appearances on the other songs.
Yeah, we just emailed them really. It wasn't super fancy. We'd we got their email from the year previously where they'd messaged us, which was really nice. And again, a very unexpected email to receive, a very welcome email where their guitarist had been to one of our shows in Canada. And he'd been brought along by his brother, discovered our band, listened to our music, told the rest of the Nickelback guys about us, and they sent a message just letting them know that they'd been to the show and they liked the band. So we already had their email. So when we had the idea, we just thought, what's the worst that can happen? They can say no, and we tried, and yeah, luckily they said yes.
It's amazing, very simple story, and it seems like Chad Krieger, his vocal parts. I mean, his voice is all recognizable instantly, but I think he also did some lower vocals, which are unlike him in this song too, right?
Yeah. Well, that was the actual initial idea. The first, light bulb moment for asking Nickelback was actually we were, demoing this low sort of croaky voice on that verse, and it reminded me. I was like, oh, maybe it could be done a bit like in Nickelback's song Rockstar, where they have
Yeah.
ZZ Top come in and do that low voice. And I was like, we've got Nickelback's email, we should ask them to do it. And I was talking to the rest of the guys, and they were like, that's not even Nickelback, that's not even Chad, that's ZZ Top. But we were like, oh, well, we don't have ZZ Top's email, and Nickelback, we're actually fans of Nickelback, so let's ask them and to see, if they'd be up for it. But obviously, once we had the idea, then we were like, well, the chorus would be obviously incredible for him that would be the main thing that we'd want him to do. And he was, Chad was up for all of it. He was, they were so great. They just said, whatever you need us to do, let us know your ideas. We'll throw in a few new ideas ourselves in the chorus, like all the harmonies, Ryan singing, all the stacked layers, and he recorded a guitar solo at the end. So yeah, it was a sort of silly idea that then when we thought about, we never imagined how it would be. We kind of thought about it in our minds, but we didn't know how it would turn out until we heard it, and it just felt so great. So yeah, really grateful for them for doing it and being such like amazing, easy people to work with.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And the video, I mean, is the song more about actual nightmares or more about a relationship that is nightmarish?
Yeah, it's really about both. It's about, the song was about my my relationship that was going through a tough period where we were having such a difficult time um, through, just it was a kind of mental and physical, yeah, the hardest mental and physical few months that we were going through, and it was, um, you know, without getting into the specific details, my partner was going through a really tough, um, recovery, and the stresses that brings to a relationship that people don't, always think about, the toll it takes on both of you as a couple when you're trying to support each other is really difficult. And with that, across the time, sometimes you lose hope. Sometimes you think, are we going to get through this? Are we going to come out the other end together? Are we going to, is this going to be the thing that beats us? Especially when you're then having, the stresses when you're having arguments and all the things that come with these tough times in life to overcome. And I was living through that in the day, and then I was going to sleep and just not having dreams about it as well. It was like there was no release. There was like, weeks of it where you'd be talking about really tough things just before bed. You then go to bed, you can't get to sleep, and then when you do get to sleep, then it's creeping into your dreams and creeping into your nightmares. And that's what the song is about, really. It's this kind of blurring between reality and your dream world. So they're all kind of all the lyrics in the song are just actual nightmares I had, little moments and kind of things that make sense in a dream but then don't make sense in the real world. And I've only had it a couple of times, but the if you've ever been like, sat on by a paralysis demon, you
Mm,
know,
yeah.
that is just the weirdest thing. The first time you have it, you just got no idea what is going on. And I was having that. I'd never had that before, and I had it maybe two or three times over the course of a year. Um, and it doesn't, once you're aware of it, you don't get as scared. But I
Mm.
remember the first time thinking, this is,
It's
what is
creepy.
going? It's so creepy. I didn't have the actual demon per se. I just had a weight. I just couldn't get up. I thought I
Mm.
was awake, but I wasn't. I was screaming, for my partner to unfreeze me in this dream. It wasn't happening, and yeah, I had so many notes on my phone, just lyric ideas, and waking up from a nightmare and just scribbling down, just random thoughts and experiences from the dreams. And there's a song on the album called Disappear, which is also about the same situation.
Mm.
It's a bit more the emotional side of the particular thing. But there weren't enough. Oh wait, I've lost you there. You still
I am
there?
here. Hello?
Okay, where
Yeah.
where are you?
Can
I
you see
can't
me?
see you. There you are.
Yeah. I'm here.
um, I didn't have enough like lyrics in the song to write about this side of it in Disappear.
Mm.
So it was like almost the same idea. The ideas that were in Disappear just kind of bled into Nightmare Tripping, and it became a more almost dreamscape trippy version of talking about the same topic.
Is it Ghost in the Night also about the same topic? Because it sounds like a follow-up. It's even
That is, yeah, yeah.
track
So it's
after
like
you.
in my mind, it's like Disappear, Nightmare Tripping, Ghost in the Night,
Mhm.
and Nightmare Tripping kind of finishes with some a lot more hope, and it finishes in a place of okay, maybe there's a chance we can get through this. And yeah, Ghost in the Night in my life, it was maybe a real ghost experience. I don't know,
Mhm.
but that feeling that I felt, it was further on in where we were in our journey in our relationship, and it felt like it was this this weight had been lifted, this kind of comfort, this end of the story where there was some sort of relief and positive thing to look forward to. So yeah, I kind of, in my mind, they're very separate songs. I think you can definitely be enjoyed as separate songs, but in my mind they work together as a trilogy.
Yeah. And I want to also ask you about the True Believers because you mentioned Nickelback, but there is another guest on the album, which is Sam Carter of Architects. And I know you're friends, you're big fans of Architects, so I guess this was kind of obvious to ask him to sing with you.
Well, it wasn't actually as obvious. We've been following Architects since we started as a band. We've you know obviously been aware of them right from the first time we ever picked up. Well, no, we were playing in school. It had been the first time like we set up our own MySpace page. If you remember MySpace,
Yeah.
we were a band. We wanted to book some gigs. We heard that MySpace was a great place to put your music, and we found this band Architects from Brighton, who uh, not crazy far away from where we live in Bedford. It's like on the other side of the train line. And man, they were just like, I mean, for a new band, for a band who are like fresh out of school, late teens, early 20s, they were just so incredibly good. Um, their early, more kind of technical death metal stuff was just like, it was just blowing our minds. We were a very different band ourselves back then. And, they were a very different band. But I remember just seeing them like, wow, this is what it is. This is what you should look like. We're a band. Their MySpace page was wicked. They had great photos. The art looked amazing. They were just a band who knew what they were doing. And seeing them at festivals over the next few years, getting to play with them at the odd festival here and there, and bumping into them here and there, but not being. We never toured with them, so we were never friends as such. So when we thought of Architects for the song, again, it was a bit of a like I hope they like the song, and I messaged Sam on Instagram and sent him the tune, and just asked him straight out if he'd be up for it, and he loved the song, luckily, and again was just so great to work with, so accommodating, so yeah, easy to sort of nail down. Luckily, we could nail down a time that he could actually come to the studio,
Mhm.
and we could record that together. Yeah, and he was great because as well we hadn't completely decided on all the finished lyrics and how we were going to figure out the last verse, which is like a back and forth between me and Sam. We had two different approaches of how to tell the story at the end. And so he did all these options, and he was in the studio just recording just a million options of lyrics. By the end of it, we were just exhausted. But he was a really good sport, and down for it, down for trying all the ideas, which was amazing.
So there are alternative versions of this track that may someday be released.
No, I wouldn't say alternate versions. It's like an alternate lyrics for the last verse. It's pretty much the same. It's just like they're so minute, the changes, but because we weren't sure about it and we knew we wouldn't be able to get him down for another day, we were like, let's just do it all now.
Okay.
But yeah, I was going through some studio footage yesterday on it, and it's really funny. My friend Dan, who produced the album, his wife recorded a load of behind the scenes footage, and just one of the videos is hilarious. It's like 3 minutes of just me asking Sam to do pretty much the same thing in a slightly different way. So yeah, we're gonna get that up online at some point.
Oh, can wait for it. And we also mentioned like the all kind of different, influences, inspirations. And I think one of the greatest example of this on this album is Hype Man, which blends this old new metal stuff with old school hip hop stuff, and it sounds like a real banger to me.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one of the first tracks we wrote, for after our last album, Amazing Things. It was one of the first tracks we came off the back of, and kind of stumbling across, just this energetic, new metal thing that, has always been part of our sound, but I think we've shied away from before because um, we've never wanted to, sit in the world where people just will pass you off as another new metal band, because I think it was very easy. There were so many new metal bands,
Yeah.
back when we were growing, so many copycat bands of, the greats of Limp Bizkit and Linkin Park. And when any band hits those levels, you're going to get 100 copycat bands that come out afterwards. And so for even though those are the bands that we, really sort of, made us fall in love with heavy music and opened our eyes to heavy music as teenagers, we'd always shied away from that before, too obviously in our sound. And we kind of dabbled in it on our previous record, Amazing Things. But Hype Man was the first song we were like, let's just embrace that. It feels great. It's got that bounce. It's got that energy. And yeah, it's a really amazing song to play live. We've started playing at the last few shows, last tour or two. Again, it brings a fresh energy to the set that we've never had before, just with the bounce of the riff. So yeah, and it's nice to finish with a different song. We've been finishing with the same song from our album Technology for years now, and Hype Man is just an amazing, end like set closer, which is really good to have.
Mhm. And I think that all this kind of music comes back in the cycles, like all this new metal stuff comes back. I mean, just before this interview, I heard a new Korn single. I don't know if you've heard the new Korn single, but it
No, I haven't heard
sounds
it yet.
so 2000s. It sounds so classic Korn from 2000s.
Awesome.
So
Yeah. I
there's
mean,
all
that's
kind.
like, yeah, I mean, Corn Biscuit, System of a Down, Deftones, all the best of the best. They were all the bands, like everyone growing up, that really paved the way for all that. And they were the best bands to do it as well. They're the bands that have stuck around because, they're the bands that have continued to release great albums, throughout, the past few decades, which is just, it has meant that their core fan base, never left. And now it's like there's this whole new generation of kids discovering them, which is just amazing. It's like, I guess it's the same as me when I was a kid discovering Metallica for the first time.
Mhm.
They'd been a band for, over a decade. But, I saw their video for I Disappear when it was the Mission Impossible 2
Yeah,
soundtrack.
yeah.
And, in my mind, I was like, oh my God, who's this brand new metal band, And then you realize, okay, this band have been around for a long time now. They've got albums under their belt. And, through that, it opened up Pantera and Slayer and all these other bands. But like, that is now happening with new metal, which is really cool.
Yeah, and Deftones is always one of the best bands. Like I saw them live like 2 months ago, and it was like one of the best shows I've seen in years. And they're getting better and better. It's amazing to see them live. But I heard a story that once you played for Deftones when they were in the audience.
We did. That is a true story. It's one of the most awkward and embarrassing feelings I've ever had in my entire life. Yeah, it was a Atticus Christmas party, like Atticus clothing, in London, and we'd been booked to play. I think it was before we'd even released our first album, and it was a free bar Christmas party in this small venue, but like there was a stage, in a completely different area to the bar. So everyone was at the bar just getting all their free drinks. We were playing to no one, but we had a set time to play. So it's just very awkward. You're playing this set to zero people, apart from our manager, who had had too many of these free drinks and was on the dance floor by herself, just kind of like swaying boogie away. So the whole time we're looking at each other thinking, this can't get any worse. And then Chino and the rest of the band come in. They were brought in by their publicist, who we know very well, and she's lovely. But like, again, I think they didn't want to be hassled by all the other party goers, so they got kind of like brought through to the sort of the backstage room. There were two backstage rooms, ours and this other one. So they had their own little room. So they were brought backstage and taken there so they could ditch all their coats and stuff or whatever, start watching us and then ditch their stuff and then just come back and watch us side stage. So Chino's like a meter away from me. I'm playing to like one person on the dance floor who's just, really drunk by this point. And I don't know where to look because I'm like, I don't want to perform to him because that's really weird because he's over here next to me. So I'm just there focused on the dance floor, basically playing to no one, just thinking, oh my God, this is, one of my idols and inspirations right here. Tried not to think about it, but obviously you can't. And we finished the set and they were lovely. They said hi. They said they enjoyed the show. I don't know if they did or not. They were probably just being polite, but they were, yeah, very nice. Really, really like lovely interaction meeting them afterwards. It was really cool. But yeah, I've never felt more awkward playing a show ever. It was horrible.
This is amazing story to tell, everyone. So this June you're going to play in Warsaw as a part of Summer Punch Festival. So there'll be a lot of great bands. There'll be the 3 Days Grace, Bad Omens, Baby Metal, Paya Royale, you, and a lot of other bands. So I hope you have a great time. And you've played in Poland a couple of times. Do you have like a special
Mm.
memories from the shows?
I mean, it's always, I feel like it's just like the energy. I just think the energy is amazing in Poland. Like, again, I don't know if it's, because obviously we haven't been lucky enough to go there as much as we wanted to. It's always been, again, it's logistics and timing and what other shows you've got around. But every time we've been, it's been crazy. And I don't know if, like, again, Poland, like, in the same way that, certain places in the UK, you don't always get all the shows when bands come to Europe or the UK, only certain cities some cities are just greedy and they get all the good shows. So when we have come to Poland, it's just been, amazing energy and people are really just up for it because I think it's like, well, they don't know if they're going to see us again for a while. So they put it. So yeah, just amazing shows really and like great food as well. Like, we've had, I love, as to someone else is like, I just love dumplings. I love dumplings in every capacity. And yeah, so like, Polish dumplings with some gravy and I'm sorted. Yeah.
So can't wait to see you on the show, and I hope you have fun. I don't know if Chino will be available this time, but if so, we'll bring him to your show to watch Don
Yeah,
Broco.
that would be good. I'd like to redeem myself. So yeah, that would be great.
Have you talked with him since then about this?
No,
No.
no, no. We haven't seen them since at
Oh,
all. Yeah, I've
oh,
just again watching from a fans from the crowd, but never
yeah,
never played any other shows with them since. So that would be cool one day.
yeah. Now we gotta meet him again. Thank you very much, Rob, for the interview. It's been great talking to you, and I'll
Thanks so
see you
much.
very soon in Poland.
Thanks for having me, man. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.